Today on CityCast Nashville, I'm joined by my dear friend Chris Williams, a rideshare driver with a front row seat to the city. From tourists to locals, he's here to share what gig work reveals about Nashville right now. It's Monday, July 14th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Chris, we have been friends for a very long time, and I thought it would be so fun to have one of my childhood friends on for the launch of our CityCast Nashville Neighbors. Isn't that fun? I mean, we've been neighbors for how many years now here in Nashville? But today marks a really exciting thing for us. We are officially launching our brand spanking new membership program for people here in Nashville who love our city and are searching for ways to find a deeper connection to it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Y'all have been so amazing so far. You've been tuning into our podcast, reading our newsletter, sharing with friends. And now we're inviting you to go a step further and become a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. Chris, you're looking at me like, what the heck does that mean? Okay, hear me out. With every fiber of my being, I believe, and so does my team here at CityCast Nashville, we all believe together that neighbors are more critical than ever. Why? Because right now we're showing up for people. You know, we're borrowing eggs because we can't afford them. We're carpooling more than ever. We're helping take kids to school. You know, neighbors really do show up for each other. And that's exactly what we mean when we ask you to join as a CityCast Nashville neighbor. For $10 a month or $100 a year, you will be getting exclusive invites to members-only events. Everybody loves a members-only event.
Always.
And y'all, we have some super fun ones planned, but I'm not going to tell them yet. I have to save it for the rest of the week, where we'll sprinkle in some ideas that we have for some events. But not only that, you're going to get ad-free listening, a weekly email rounding up some of our top picks for what to do around Nashville.
So we get a weekly newsletter about events going on in town, but there are also exclusive events through CityCast?
That's right, Chris. And everybody loves a good event, don't they? Also, one of my favorite things about joining as a neighbor, we are going to have a thing called neighborhood shout-outs, meaning that we're going to ask you to spread some love for a business or a nonprofit that you may need help uplifting in our community. And we are totally here for that. But honestly, more than any of these perks, becoming a neighbor is about supporting our work. So if you've loved what we've done up until this point, get ready, folks, because we are just getting started. For only $10 a month or $100 a year, you're telling us today that you support us exactly what we're doing. We are a small but mighty team, and we absolutely love what we do. And more importantly, we love Nashville and the people in it. So if you are ready right now to become a founding member of CityCast Nashville Neighbor, head on over to membership.citycast.fm. Oh, and this week only, as a big thank you to our founding neighbors, we're giving away a free CityCast Nashville tote to anyone who joins this week. It's bold and beautiful, just like myself, and 100% ready to haul your library books, groceries, or favorite bottle of wine. So head on over to membership.citycast.fm, sign up, and please join our community. We'd love to have you in the neighborhood. Okay, Chris, thank you again for being here for our official launch. Now let's focus all of our energy back on you. How did you become a rideshare driver?
I graduated college into the last financial crisis. I spent most of my 20s tending bar on Broadway. And I was like, well, no harm, no foul. I'm making tons of money. I'm having a lot of fun working down here on Broadway. And then, the next step, there's no polite way to put this. I knocked up a waitress. So I had my son, who's the love of my life. In the first year of his life, this lifestyle is not going to be conducive to me having a healthy relationship with my son and being present. And it just so happened about the time I was having those thoughts, a regular at the bar who worked in the mortgage industry was like, man, I've always thought you would be good at this. Come to the office, walk around, shake some hands. I'll show you what I do. If you don't like it, at least you got a free lunch that day. I'll take you somewhere nice. And I was like, you know what? Sold. I follow him around the office, meet some people, and then I just kind of sit in a chair in his office and listen to what he does. So towards the end of the day, he was like, hey, man, do you want to hop on the phone and try one of these calls? Why not? Close the deal, to the point to where he had to mute them and get back on. He's like, hey, it's not actually legal for you to go any further in this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
So after I left and shook everyone's hand that day, his boss was like, I want him in here tomorrow. I want him to work here. So moving on along, things started getting hairy around COVID times. When the Fed started jacking up rates, at the same time that home prices started going through the roof, owning a home became impossible, which means people like me working commission only went from living high on the hog to not knowing where the next meal is coming from. It was a very dramatic turn. And, I had a couple of buddies that were keeping a ship afloat doing gig work. They were doing things like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Lyft, Uber. I was like, I've got to do something. Let me check this out. At the very least, it'll give me flexibility and buy me some time. And, I kind of fell in love with it. And I know that sounds crazy. And there are times where I'm like, man, I really should be doing something different. And I have explored some other side hustles, and we'll get into those later if you want. But as far as the gig economy stuff, the amount of freedom is tremendous. And it's really kind of a throwback to my bartending days, where I get to meet people for a few minutes at a time. Most of them are in from out of town having a great time. They've probably got a few drinks in them. So I just cut up with them and make them laugh, teach them some things about the city, where to go, where to avoid. I really, really enjoy it. I tell people all the time, if this paid somewhere around twice as much as it currently does, I don't think I'd ever do anything else.
Well, we were excited to talk to you about Lyft and Uber because it is kind of the backbone of Nashville. I mean, these gig workers are the backbone of Nashville. Do you drive full time, or is this just one of your many side hustles?
More so full time now than I ever anticipated, for the reasons that we kind of listed earlier. And also because when I first started doing it, it was another one of these examples of something I stumbled into where the money was way better than I expected. But over the last, let's call it year and a half, that's gone down dramatically. And I think a lot of it has to do with, once again, I think people are just out of money. A lot of the things that used to be a no-brainer, like this is convenient, so I'll spend the money, people are really peeling back on that. And when you combine it with so many people are out of money, the first thing they jump to is gig work. So now the market is flushed, and everything on those apps is a real-time supply and demand heat map.
Well, what is it like when the city is flooded with people, like when CMA Fest comes to town, or even when multiple events are taking place and they're hitting all at once? How hard is it for you to do your job?
That's an excellent question. And the answer, I think, has a lot to do with how you approach the gig work. That's one of the cool things about this. There's no clock in and do what a boss tells you. You're not really working for anyone. You're just kind of figuring out how you're going to navigate the waters of the day. Most people, where their mind would go is like, oh, XYZ is in town, CMA Fest, or all these concerts are going on at the same time, and there's a hockey game. I'm going to go plant myself downtown and collect that money. I have the exact opposite reaction. When I know there's going to be a logjam of people, I'm more inclined to go to the outskirts, collect the edge of that heat map surge, while everyone else fights and gets stuck in traffic downtown. I can move people from Bellevue to Madison and collect that same surge.
Well, I remember we spoke a couple weeks ago and you were telling me also that people from out of town are coming into Nashville during these large events also to capitalize.
It's wild, very, very often. So I don't have the opportunity to meet a whole lot of other drivers. Once again, we don't clock in, or there's no break room where I get to hang out with other Uber drivers, So I don't know what they're up to other than the secondhand accounts I get from everyone that gets in my car. When people ask where you're from, I'm like, Nashville. And they're like, where are you really from? I'm like,
yep.
Nashville. What are we doing here? Because they're like, oh, every driver I've had is either they're from Huntsville, they're from Louisville, Knoxville. And it's like, that's so interesting. And the first few times I heard it, I was like, why would you drive all this way? I don't know if there's a Reddit page or wherever these people coalesce, but apparently they've got it in their mind that Nashville is a gold rush. But unfortunately, when everybody floods to the same area, it dilutes the income potential for everyone.
Yeah, I was going to ask then, does it take money out of your pocket?
Sure, absolutely. But don't hate the player, hate the game,
What are the other logistical challenges of doing this work?
The biggest logistical challenges are really just kind of the minutia of it, the upkeep of the car. And, the longer you do it, you do kind of notice time trends and things like that. Like, I need to switch to Uber Eats during lunch and dinner time, or I'm going to miss those booms. And as much as I don't like traffic, I probably need to be driving during rush hour. Also, it's just so unpredictable where is going to pop and when. and how close you can get to the action to stay busy, but how far away from the action can I stay to not get stuck? Because that car's not making any money if it's not moving.
Well, so you mentioned that, there's obviously not a break room, but do you all find a way to talk online possibly? Or because I know that a lot of the local drivers have been organizing around the airport lately.
So I know that there are communities, whether it be on Facebook pages, like I said earlier, Reddit. Apparently, there are a lot of YouTube channels that have bolstered a large community within their comments and have Discord pages associated with things like that. At the beginning, I was curious into checking those things out, but a lot of people make whatever they do who they are, and it becomes a bit of their lifestyle. I'm only an Uber driver while someone's in my backseat. The rest of the time, I'm just Chris. I don't feel the need to get buried in those weeds. I understand there's a lot of organizing in different places for different things. A lot of people seem to be really upset about the percentage that Lyft and Uber take of the rides. I don't bother looking into those numbers because, Lyft and Uber provide the platform. And that's kind of one of the snaky things about living in a capitalist system is if you don't like the way your boss and or company are running things, there's nothing preventing you from starting your own. I'm not going to do that. So I'm perfectly happy that they've provided me a platform where I can make a little scratch anytime I want to.
You're living off of the tips. Is that correct? Like they give you a cut and then also you receive tips.
That's correct. The vast majority of the money I make is from the fare itself. I'd say tips are probably a third.
Are you seeing a trend of people tipping more these days or tipping less?
It's been remarkably consistent. I think that's one of those things that's burned into our culture. If someone provides you a service and a tip prompt is provided, people are more or less inclined to at least throw you a buck or two, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it stacks up over the course of a night.
Yeah, it drives me nuts, though, when I am at friends and they do decide to do Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatever. I always am like, you better tip 20%. I've had open conversations with some friends, fellow friends of ours, mutual friends of ours, that
they shall remain nameless.
They will remain nameless. That how much do you tip your Uber Eats driver? And I say 20%.
Sure.
What would you say?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. I'm glad you brought this up. And maybe this will help some people out that are listening. Maybe they've noticed that it takes a long time for their order to even get accepted. Sometimes it even gets canceled. A few things people need to understand is we aren't assigned rides. Rides are presented to us and we can choose whether or not to accept it. It's usually whatever the base fare is and the anticipated tip, which, people put in on the front end. If I see something that's going 6 to 10 miles and the fare is only $3 to $5, that's a big fat waste of my time. It's going to cost me more in gas and time and money. Those are shorter, higher paying rides that I've missed out on because I was taking your falafel. And I believe the app starts to prompt them after a certain amount of time has gone on, like, hey, you might want to consider jacking this up a little bit. Once again, don't hate the player, hate the game. If you want your food in a reasonable amount of time and you don't want it to be cold, pony up at the front end. But another reason I'm glad you brought this up, there is an unfortunate thing baked into this cake. That anticipated tip I told you about, it's not guaranteed. Someone can change their mind. And there is an unfortunate trend called tip baiting.
What?
Where people will stack a $10, $12 tip on top of the normal fare. And you're like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. It might be kind of across town, but that extra $12 for a 20-minute drive on top of this is pretty good. I'm going to accept this one. But then as the ride processes, they have removed the tip or reduced it to a buck or two.
Oh, Nashville, if you are listening and you do this, I think there may be a special place for you when you leave this earth. That is not nice. I don't like that. Hey y'all, it's your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, popping in to tell you all about CityCast Nashville Neighbors, our brand new membership program. We're calling it CityCast Neighbors because we've learned that people who listen to CityCast Nashville are people who care deeply about this city and want to make it better. They're just the kind of neighbors this city needs. It comes with some pretty sweet benefits. CityCast Nashville neighbors gain access to ad-free podcast listening and a weekly email rounding up our best picks for what to do in Nashville. Plus, we're hosting neighbors-only events like happy hours, local volunteering meetups, and other events where we explore and better our city together. And you get to be a part of the local conversation too by shouting out a local business or nonprofit you love on the show or in the Hey Nashville newsletter. For $10 a month, you can become a CityCast Nashville neighbor today by going to membership.citycast.fm. Y'all, we couldn't make this show without people like you supporting us, and we're so excited for you to be a part of it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. Hey, y'all, I want to talk a little bit more about CityCast Nashville Neighbors. It really is such a huge deal for us, and we're so excited about it, not just because you get more from CityCast Nashville when you join, but because we get to build real relationships with you. All right, real talk. Y'all know I am from Nashville. This is where I grew up. I did move away, and upon my return, I was clueless. I had no idea where the cool kids were hanging out. I had no idea where I could find the cheapest cold beer in town. Heck, I didn't even know the shortcut to my mom's house across town from East. But thankfully, because of CityCast Nashville, I've been able to reinvest in my city and meet all kinds of amazing people here. And I kind of want to give that gift back to y'all. So one of the things I'm most looking forward to is the chance to meet you in person at member events. When you become a neighbor, you'll get exclusive invites to gatherings with our team and other listeners. And so we're going to have a chance to hang out. We're going to talk about what's happening in Nashville. We're going to talk about what's not happening in Nashville that we wish were happening in Nashville. It's really just all about connection and community. It's more important than ever these days, y'all. And we've seen how powerful it can be when CityCast Nashville listeners come together. It feels like instant community. We've seen that, at Musicians Corner. We've seen that at Fridays by the River. We just want to do more of that with you. So if you've ever wanted to get involved, meet the people behind the mic, or just share the space with fellow Nashvillians who are curious, passionate, and plugged in, this is your chance, y'all. It's only $10 a month. That is less than an Uber ride to Bridgestone.
I got $10.
Head to membership.citycast.fm to join CityCast Nashville Neighbors today. We truly can't wait to meet you. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right, well, let's get into the tea of it all. I want to know some drama. I'm sure you've seen some wild stuff. What's the most chaotic or memorable group you've ever driven?
Whew, that's a loaded question. Like we talked about earlier, I tended bar on Broadway for the better part of a decade, so there's so few things that could go on in the backseat of my car that would even raise my eyebrows. But that being
what
said,
you saw on Broadway?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
There have been a couple people that tried to finish up a strong date night together in the backseat. And I'm like, hey, I need to get a little spray bottle or something. I'm like, yeah, you guys got to calm down. Typically, I'll just roll down the back windows, just kind of really rattle them with some fresh air. They're like, all right. There's a human up front. We're going to calm down. I had one lady that, boy, I don't know what was in her system, but she went to another plane of existence in that back seat.
Oh.
And it was a roller coaster. Like, some of it was hilarious. Some of it was terrifying. But I just got her to where she was going. It was I think it might be the only time where at drop off, I made it a point to get out of the car and physically make sure she got to where she was going, and that another human being that knew who she was was able to lay hands on her. And I'm like, okay, I'm washing my hands of this now. You know her, right? You're going to take care of this. Mm-hmm. But that was spooky. There have been a few times where I've had to physically carry someone into their hotel. It's usually a couple, 3 girls, but they're here for bachelorette party, whatever it is, and they don't have the strength to carry their passed out friend up to the hotel room. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. One time we pulled out the, the baggage cart.
Oh, no. And you put her on there?
Yeah, put her on there and wheeled her to the
gosh.
elevator and told them it was up to them to get her back up to the room from that point on.
I mean, honestly, pretty smart trick. Because then you're not liable of going into their hotel room. You're just bringing them the cart.
Absolutely. That's exactly why I did it that time, because the first couple of times it hadn't occurred to me until afterwards. I was like, this could have gone a different direction when they wake up and remember the story in a different way than it happened. I was like, I'm kind of putting myself in a very vulnerable situation here. Mm-hmm. So let me get them to the elevator and they can handle it from there.
You're one of the good ones, Chris. Oh, my goodness.
And then, of course, that leads into every now and then someone wants to hey, you're really nice and I've had a good night. You want to come inside? I'm like, no, thanks. No, thanks.
That's another gig.
Yeah, exactly.
How do visitors talk about Nashville? What are they excited about? And what do they complain about most?
Marie, people love this town in a way that I don't think I ever could have appreciated being a local. It's one of my very favorite things about doing this. And it's, once again, it's kind of a throwback to the bartending days where I get to experience my hometown through new, excited eyes. It's lovely. People have an absolute love affair with this town. And it's one of the few places in the world where it seems to me, after interacting with so many people from all over the world, it seems to live up to the hype that they've built. How many places have you been where you were so excited? You know, the Eiffel Tower. The area in Paris where that is, depending on which direction you take, is kind of a dump. But 9 times out of 10 people have, 9 times out of 10 people have this idea of Nashville built in their heads, and we meet or exceed it. There's a lot of pride that I take in that. And I never expected to feel that way. But I really, really have fallen in love with our city through other people's experiences.
That's beautiful. Now tell us the dirt. What do people hate about our town?
The big complaint I get a lot is when families come and they are shocked to understand that it's not a very kid-friendly town. You know, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but there's just not a lot of family-friendly activities. You know, not like blockbuster fun things to do. Sure, there's parks and certain things you can do, but as far as bring the kids here and just have a blowout weekend with them, there's just not a lot available.
Well, you know what, Chris? Whenever anybody asks you what they should do with their kids while you're driving them around, you should suggest to them that they should join CityCast Neighbors, because we do an excellent job actually shouting out family-friendly activities, all thanks to our newsletter editor, Margaret Kingsbury. Just go on over to membership.citycast.fm and we'll give you a whole list of family-friendly fun things to do here in Nashville.
That's a fantastic suggestion. Yeah, I'm definitely going to start plugging that to people and say, hey, there's literally a whole list provided to you of every event going on. And I promise you, some of them are family-friendly.
How has your view of Nashville changed since you started driving?
I'm so embarrassed to admit that there are entire enclaves of this city that I did not know existed. Throughout our entire lives, we get these little routines and places we know. And sure, there are the stretches of road in between those places. But how often do you take a left or a right off of that stretch of road and see what's in between the things you're familiar with? Probably not as often as you might think. And there are some really nifty little neighborhoods, restaurants I never knew about. It's a much more diverse and cosmopolitan city than even I understood. You know, on the other hand, there is kind of I don't want to say a dark side, but like the revelation of the layers, like the parallel universes that exist in this town, whether that be class or cliques or all of the above. And unfortunately, sometimes that's divided over things like race or religion. I mean, there really are just parallel existences that go on that have no contact or knowledge of the others. You know, there are people that live here that clearly believe that this is the Mecca and you're going to have a fantastic, rich life here. And that's true for a large number of people. There's a whole other cast of people here, and I chose that word for a reason, that view this town as an eternal struggle, and there's no way out. The ladder's been pulled up behind whoever was in front of them. And neither of these groups, or most of the layers in between, have any experience or even knowledge of the others. And it's a little startling to see that firsthand, because you can very quickly go from driving the CEO of a company that's involved in your everyday life to some swanky event. And your very next ride could be someone who is either just crawling out of or just falling into homelessness to get to that last job interview that hopefully will make a little difference. And it's shocking. It's startling.
That's going to sit with me, actually, for a little bit, because that is the truth. That's Nashville's truth. So
I'm sure it's the same in every city, but it's just so few people get an opportunity to experience every layer of this town's existence in the scope of a day. And there's a certain amount of code switching you have to be able to do to be jovial and relatable to whoever's in the car at that given moment.
This conversation is really making me think of respect. How do you think tourists treat locals or drivers? Do they treat you with respect?
I think there's a big misconception about the tourists. Sure, there's some frustration, but I think a lot of that boils down to economic changes that we've all gone through since Nashville became an it city. But the actual individual human beings, just as much as I told you they love our town mostly because of our people. I mean, that's the number one compliment that I get about this town every single time somebody climbs into that back seat is they just talk about how much they love the people here. Once again, they had an idea of what Southern hospitality was, but in a weird kind of way, I think the rest of the country thinks that's performative until they come here and they're like, no, everybody's just nice. It's like being a perpetual 8-year-old. You can just walk up to a stranger and be like, hey, do you want to be friends?
That is so Nashville. That's what
and then
I love.
Are.
Here in Nashville, we do celebrate people and we celebrate our neighbors. So it's a beautiful place. Yes, I love it. It's great. If the mayor or a Metro Council member were sitting in your back seat, what would you want to say to them?
2 things. First, I'm going to start with, I think the big misconception is that us gig workers are being taken advantage of and we should be treated more as employees. And I've more and more started hearing grumblings from City Hall that they want to do something to, quote, help us with that and get us standard pay and access to benefits and things like that. And my answer to that would be, mind your business. This is a gig economy. It's called a gig, not a job. I understand that their heart's in the right place, but this should be, for most of us, a stopping off point to the next thing. But if it gets to the point where I do have to clock in for certain hours or a certain chunk of the money that I need to make today, which is the beauty of a gig economy, is taken away to go to some benefits that at the end of the day, I'm probably not actually going to be offered when the time comes anyway. That's a whole other podcast.
Right.
Leave it alone. If we wanted a clock in, clock out job, we would have one. So that's the heavy one. The light one is shut down Broadway to traffic forever. From 6th to the river, no cars on Broadway.
Why?
For many reasons. Selfishly, it's difficult. The traffic is a nightmare. Safety is really the big one. People can't be, especially out-of-towners who've been drinking a lot, they just can't be trusted to understand when it is and when it is not okay because it's a constantly moving goalpost on when they can or cannot be in the middle of the road. So if somebody from, Des Moines lands at B&A and takes an Uber straight to downtown on a Friday night at 8:30, and it's just like a clean Bourbon Street, why on earth would they wake up the next Saturday morning thinking it would be any different? Well, they're hungover. They're probably retoxing a little bit, and they're just going to wander out into the street because based on their experience, as soon as they got off the airplane, that's how this town works. I've seen many people get almost hit. A couple of people get actually hit. Luckily, everybody was fine. But it's either people in the street all the time or none of the time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. But
the backup to that point is the only reason anyone would have to drive on a road is to get to the place they want to go to. Yeah? Well, there's no parking on Broadway. There's no getting to the place you want to go to and stopping. And once again, locals and out-of-towners have this problem. When they want to go downtown and have a good time, the first thing they do is drive straight to the big buildings and then down the middle of Broadway. And then the light bulb goes off in their head. Oh, right, I've got to get a few blocks away to park this thing. Let's just eliminate that. From 6th to the river, just let the people have a good time. Maybe cover it with cobblestones, make it nice. Furthermore, I would make Commerce one way all the way up and Demonbreun one way all the way down and just have a loop going around the blocks that surround Broadway. Boom. Makes it easier for everyone.
Wow. Mayor Freddie, if you're listening, we're talking to you. I think that's a great idea. And hearing from the people that are driving there all the time, I think that's an excellent idea. So this has been so wonderful, Chris.
I've had a great time.
Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to shout out, if you all have enjoyed Chris's voice as much as I have on the pod, you can follow him on TikTok and social media. Can you just shout out your socials real quick so people can follow you and support you?
Yeah, I'm not terribly active on all the socials. The big one is TikTok. You can find me at Lackluster Video. Kind of play on words with Blockbuster Video. All one word. And look, it's a big mix. It's just a stream of consciousness. Some of it will make you upset, but it's all coming from a good place. Watch the next one. I promise it'll make you laugh.
I love it. Chris, thank you again. And folks at home, if you want to support more conversations like this, you can go to membership.citycast.fm and get a full year of CityCast Nashville membership for only $100, which is about the same amount of money as 2 rides to the airport at peak times or 2 tanks of gas, you know? By becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor, you're not just getting access to an ad-free feed or an exclusive events email every week. You're also supporting our work, bringing you stories from all over town, from Metro Council to the people who make our city work, like Chris.
Yeah.
And we already have some members. Dominique M., Sonia L., Deb V., Larry Y., and Linda Mother Truckin' Anderson. We are so grateful to you for being our very first neighbors. You jumped right in, no questions asked. Thank you so much for your support. I think a lot more of you may need that extra special tote bag I've been talking about, y'all. We are sending those out only this week to our founding neighbors, so head on over to membership.citycast.fm to support the show and get that free tote for yourself today. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Doodles!